Bershus the Rosh Yeshiva, the Mashkiach, Rabbi Beryl and Rebbetzin Weisbord and family, Rabbi Weinrib, Rabbanim, dignitaries and guests. My name is Chaim Wheelcatch and I will be your Master of Ceremonies tonight. Well, the Rebbetzin tried to avoid this. She even employed one of the largest weather systems ever recorded, all in an attempt not to be honored. But the Rebbetzin met her match. She met it in a group of dedicated individuals who were determined to celebrate her vision, and nothing, not even Hurricane Sandy, was going to get in their way. It seems that the one above agreed. It must have been some battle. It's a great kavod and a great honor to be able to address this chashuv, this very important crowd. When one speaks at a community event and about guests of honor, the job is a balancing act of trying to speak about the guest of honor while focusing attention on the organization and its mission. Tonight, as we honor the memory of Rebbetzin Weinberg, Alei Shalom, while focusing our attention on Bikur Cholim of Baltimore, an interesting dynamic occurs. First, I would venture that almost everyone here, and I am no different, feels a desire to talk about their personal relationship with the Rebbetzin and how much she meant to them, as well as perhaps those of us who are so fortunate to have had a relationship with the Rosh Yeshiva Rabbi Yaakov Weinberg Zatzal. At the same time, another more unique recognition hits home, realizing that the guest of honor, and the organization are synonymous. The Rebbetzin was Bikur Cholim, and the Rebbetzin is the inspiration for the current and future of Bikur Cholim of Baltimore. Thank you all for being here tonight. Special recognition to all of the dignitaries and community leaders who have made time to be here with us. Bikur Cholim would like to recognize the presence of Mr. Mark Terrell, the President of Associated, a key sponsor of Bikur Cholim. Bikur Cholim would also like to recognize the presence of Mrs. Martha Nathanson, Vice President of Government Relations and Advocacy for Sinai Lifebridge. Sinai Lifebridge and Bikur Cholim of Baltimore share a strong partnership in providing support, and we thank Martha for her leadership. At this time, we'd also sadly like to mention the passing of Sheldon Berman, the former chair of Sinai Hospital Orthodox Advisory Committee. United States Senator Barbara Mikulski, unquestionably one of the staunchest supporters of our community and Jewish causes around the world, could not join us tonight, but sent a letter instead I'd like to take a moment to read. Addressed to Mr. Aaron Katz, President. Dear Mr. Katz and friends, greetings to the members and guests of Bikur Cholim of Baltimore on the occasion of this reception celebrating the life and the work of your founder, Rebbetzin Chana Weinberg of blessed memory. Thank you for the kind invitation from your honorary reception chair and my good friend Howard Tzvi Friedman to share this uplifting event with all of you gathered here this evening. I would have enjoyed learning from your guest speaker, Rabbi Dr. Tzvi Hirsch Weinreb. Since 1985, Bikur Cholim of Baltimore has been true to its mission to serve the needs of the people facing illness in the Jewish community. I applaud the hard work of all the volunteers who have come together to share their loving kindness and support patients and their families from near and far. I know they are very grateful for the comfortable rooms at 3 hospitals around the city, as well as the apartments, transportation, doctor's referrals, respite care, meals, and financial assistance. Friends, I know that chesed is central to Jewish ethics and Jewish theology and is thought by many to be the primary virtue. The Jewish community is well known for its many expressions of kindness which contribute to Tikkun Olam and form the foundation of many communal institutions. The extraordinary work of your founder and the members of Bikur Cholim of Baltimore is testimony to your faith. Thank you for all you do for so many. Sincerely, Barbara A. Mikulski, United States Senator. Here tonight representing Senator Mikulski is our Special Assistant, Marilyn Kreitner. We welcome her. We also welcome longtime friends, Maryland State Delegate John Cardin, Ricky Spector of Baltimore City Council. We welcome Joyce Leviton, Special Assistant to Senator Ben Cardin, and we thank you all for being here. Tonight is an evening of Hakaras HaTov. We begin with the present and the future. At the risk of scarring my longtime friendship with him, we must all take the time to express our hakaras hatov, more than a simple thank you, to the gentleman on my left, Mr. Yaakov Feinstein, who has totally thrown himself into the task of taking Bikur Cholim of Baltimore to the next level. He has infused it with youth, that's my attempt to save our friendship, with excitement and with class. For the past 3 to 4 months, he has worked around the clock with all the volunteers to make this evening the success that it is, Baruch Hashem. Yaakov and Adina made their son's bar mitzvah just 8 days ago, and all during the preparation, Bikur Cholim was still his priority. May the efforts of your inspirational work on behalf of Bikur Cholim of Baltimore be a zchus for your bar mitzvah bacher and your entire family. We are grateful for your leadership. We are here this evening to celebrate the vision of the Rebbetzin Alav Shalom in establishing Bikur Cholim of Baltimore. The Rebbetzin formed Bikur Cholim into the loving and caring organization that it is today. In her later years, she groomed many of the next generation to continue her work. Today, we are experiencing a new renaissance and energy within Bikur Cholim as the community continues to grow. As Bikur Cholim continues its mission in partnership with Sinai, Johns Hopkins, University of Maryland, and many other area hospitals, the future of Bikur Cholim of Baltimore is blossoming with vitality and volunteerism. All one needs to do is to peruse the beautiful program that you have in front of you and take notes of the tremendous outpouring of effort, born of love, that went into tonight's event. We collectively thank each of you for your part in making tonight's celebration what it is. We are all certain that the Rebbetzin is looking down with a smile at the enormous efforts of today's volunteers in providing our community with the comfort of knowing that those in need are being cared for and loved in the way that she so beautifully demonstrated to us, a way that was graceful yet straightforward, dynamic yet humble, and wise, regal, and loving all at the same time. But who could be surprised? As the daughter of the great Rosh Yeshiva and founding Dean of Ner Yisrael, Moreno Rabbeinu Rav Ruderman Zatzal, and the wife of the Rosh Yeshiva, Moreno Rav Yaakov Weinberg Zatzal, this family of enormous Torah leaders have shaped our community. We appreciate that you are here tonight to honor the Rebbetzin, to honor Bikur Cholim of Baltimore, and to be inspired by the program. Baltimore has been blessed with many wonderful Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbeim, community Rabbanim, teachers, lay leaders, and community members. Our guest speaker, Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch Weinreb Shlita, has brought his brilliant Torah scholarship, broad world knowledge, articulate speech, and proactive leadership to the entire Jewish world and beyond, onto some of the largest stages in the world today. But to all of us here in Baltimore, he was, is, and always will be a local. A Rav, teacher, counselor, visionary, and Ish Emes, it is a great kavod, a great honor for Bikur Cholim of Baltimore, and all of us assembled here tonight to hear words of tribute and words of inspiration from Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch Weinreb.
Thank you, Chaim, for the introduction. It's difficult to speak following a video like that, which is a tribute to the community, to each of the individuals you saw, to so many individuals whom we did not see, but ultimately is a tribute to Rebbetzin Chana Weinberg, Oleha HaSholom. I want to begin by stating words of tribute to each of you who are here tonight, to everyone who is involved in Bikur Cholim in all the many variegated ways. When I think of Rebbetzin Weinberg, there's one word that comes to mind, and that word is compassion. But compassion is a word really that applies to everyone who is here tonight. You wouldn't be here if you weren't a compassionate person. To be compassionate means to feel along with someone else. To be nosei ba'ol im chavero, to feel the burden, to carry the burden of another person. In this case, of a person who is ill. So everyone here is compassionate. What is distinctive about the compassion of the woman we're here to honor tonight. I think that what makes her compassion distinctive was her capacity, her amazing capacity, to transform that compassion into action. There are many people who have strong feelings of sympathy, who feel the tsar, who feel the pain of other people. But somehow it stops there, or perhaps it goes a step further to a donation, large or small. But to take that feeling and to translate it into action, and more than that, to be able to mobilize and motivate other people into action, that's the compassion of Rebbetzin Weinberg par excellence. That is the unique combination that she had. A deep feeling and an ability to make it real, to make other people come along, and to do so in a dazzling variety of creative ways, upon which I'd like to elaborate right now. I'll draw from two different sources. One, no rabbi, past or present or future, can avoid the temptation to wax homiletic, to use some drush. So I'd like to share with you some homiletic reflections upon her name, Chana. That's one source. The other source is one that's fairly unique to me, not totally unique. As I look around, I see other people who shared this particular slice of Rebbetzin Weinberg's accomplishments. So I'll share with you some recollections of the precious interactions I had with her in collaboration with her absolutely pioneering efforts to protect victims of domestic violence. This is an area of community concern which is not pleasant to talk about, but it's an area in which she was truly the pioneer, not just in the Orthodox Jewish community, but in the general Jewish community. To begin with just a simple homiletic observation about her name. We know, many of us here know, the custom of reciting at an appropriate point in the prayers a sentence, a verse from Tanakh, from the Bible, which begins with the letter of one's name and ends with the letter of one's name. My name is Tzvi, and my pasuk is Tsar umotzok misauni mitzvosecha sha'ashuoi. What was the pasuk, the verse for Chana? What is the verse for Chana? It's a pasuk which we're familiar with from the Eshes Chayil, Mishlei. Say it every Friday night. Chogra ba'oz mosneha vata'ametz zro'osecha. She girds herself with strength and braces her arms for her task. I don't have to go further. That pasuk, which was predestined in a sense to be her motto, her mantra through her life, is so appropriate. Chana chogra b'yoz mosneha, strength. Vata'ametz, strength again. Zro'oseha, with her arms. A woman of action, a woman of strength, a heroine in every sense of the word. But there's another aspect to the name Chana which bears a little analysis. Chana is related to the word chen, ches nun, a very difficult word to translate. Some translate it as favor, some as grace. The last time I remember offering words of tribute to Rebbetzin Weinberg was at a dinner that someone reminded me of just before in the Royale restaurant for Bikur Cholim, I don't know how many years ago. And somehow she spoke about Charm City, about Baltimore. And the name that Baltimore has, or had then, I don't know if it's still so popular, was Charm City. And she said it's a place of chen. And I got up after she made her few remarks, and I pointed out that the Talmud tells us, Shlosha chinos, saying there are three types of chen, and one is chen hamakom al yoshveha. People who come from Baltimore has for us a certain chen. Certainly has that, and will always have that for me. And it had that for her too. Baltimore was her community. She was a young person when she came here, a young girl. She lived here all of her life. That's part of the chen. The chen hamokom, the chen of the Baltimore community in her eyes. Just not even 2 weeks ago, well, 2 weeks ago now, full 2 weeks ago, we read at the end of Parshas Bereshis the first mention of the word chen in the entire Torah. V'Noach motza chen b'einei Hashem. Noach found chen, Noach found favor in the eyes of God. And Noach was not the only one that we read about who possessed this charisma, this chen. Moshe Rabbeinu did. Ki motzoso chen be'einai v'oidoacha b'shem. Yosef HaTzadik did. Vayitein chino be'einei sarbeis hasohar. And Esther, Queen Esther, had chen. Vatihi Esther noses chen be'einei kol roeha. So chen is a personality attribute. Call it charisma, call it charm, call it grace, call it all of the above, that certain people possess. And it was the chen that Noach found in the eyes of God himself that made God want to spare Noach from the Mabul. If you study the text carefully, and the Ramban notes this, Your Chaim HaKadosh notes this, Noach wasn't saved because he was a tzaddik, because he was a righteous person. He was saved because motzah chen, because God looked at him and said, there's something about him that's appealing, that's charming, that's graceful, that's beautiful. Chen. Let me share with you something which I first heard quoted by Rav Broider, Rav Simcha Zissel Broider Zatzal, when he himself was a patient needing Bikur Cholim in this town. Rav Broider was a great Rosh Yeshiva, of the Yeshiva of Hebron in Yerushalayim, one of the sages of our age, died some years ago now. And when he was visiting here, so several of us would meet with him, and he would tell us shmoozen to the extent that he could and would. But he drew my attention to a passage in the commentary of the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, the holy Or HaChaim, Reb Chaim Ibn Ator, at the end of Parshas Bereshis. The Or HaChaim writes this. It's a secret that's well worth knowing. We have many, many mitzvos. Noach wasn't spared because of all the mitzvos he did. He wasn't rescued, didn't survive the deluge, the Mabul, because of his deeds. He did it because he did 3 or 4 of those deeds, and those 3 or 4 pressed the button, so to speak, of chen. Of all the things we're asked to do as Jews, as human beings, some of them get us chen in the eyes of others and the eyes of the Almighty. The Or HaChaim then goes on to write, we don't know which 3 or 4 buttons to push. If we did, we wouldn't do all the other good deeds. We only would do the ones that would lead us to chen. So writes the Or HaChaim HaKadosh almost humorously. So we don't know what they are. But so you got to keep doing all the good deeds, and some of them are going to get you this mitzias chen. Over the years, I've come back to darshan on that passage in the Orach Chayim many times. And I maintain, who am I to say that the Orach Chayim HaKadosh is wrong? I don't think he's wrong. I think he's teasing us. We do know which attributes, which kinds of good deeds, which mitzvos bring about chen. We do know. And we have scriptural proof texts, psukim, which tell us how to find chen. We can even write a manual, how to find chen in the eyes of the Almighty and the eyes of others. For example, I'll just mention a few examples, there are many. Pasuk reads in Mishlei, the wisdom of Solomon, V'la anovim yitein chen. Chen is given to those who are humble. If you're a humble person, an anov, you have chen. Moshe had chen, as I just quoted to you, because Moshe was the greatest anov, so he probably had the greatest chen in the eyes of God. Esther, too, was modest. You know so much about her modesty in so many ways. In difficult circumstances, she retained her modesty. And therefore, Esther noses chen. She had chen. Gemara says, Maseches Sukkah, Om Rab Chama Bar Papa, Kol Adam sheyesh olav chen biyadua shehu yirei shamayim. If a person is God-fearing, that will lead to chen. So humility leads to chen, piety leads to chen. Another one, pasuk again in Mishlei, Solomon's wisdom, Seichel tov yitein chen. If a person has good seichel, a person uses his intellect properly, uses his mind for the good, for the tov, that person will discover chen. So there are answers to the question of what leads to chen. All of the above characterized Rebbetzin Weinberg. She was humble, she was God-fearing, and wow, did she have seichel tov. Did she have a shrewd, in the best sense of the word, mind. She knew how to use her God-given intelligence. There's something else that leads to chen, which is paradoxical. And one wonders, how could that lead to chen? And if I never was familiar with Rebbetzin Weinberg, I would never understand how what I'm about to tell you can lead to a person having chen. Because chen means other people like you. Chen means popularity. Chen means you're charming. Chen means people are attracted to you. Listen to this. It's a passage in the Talmud Maseches Tomit. Omer Rab Shmuel ben Nachmeni Omer Rab Yonason. Kol hamochiach es chavero. What does mochiach mean? To reprimand, to reprove, to rebuke. He who rebukes his fellow man, l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, is privileged to earn chen. That's a paradox. If I tell you what you're doing wrong, you're going to find me full of chen? If I find fault with you and give you negative feedback, the most you'll do is tolerate it, but will that gain me chen in your eyes? But the Gemara says this again. Is a pasuk, a verse, and again in Mishlei. Verse reads, Mochiach Odom Acharai. If you rebuke another person, says God, to help him follow me, chen yimtza. That person finds chen. I would suggest that the word mochiach, tochiach es amisecha, even though it's always translated to rebuke, to reprimand, it's better translated with the phrase I used in my opening remarks. Lahochiach is not to reprove, it's not to scold, it's not to critique, it's to get another person to act. to get another person to change and act properly. That's lahochiach. How you do that? That's the secret we could learn from Rebbetzin Weinberg. She was able to get other people to do what they didn't want to do. Not by telling them, you're doing the wrong thing. Not by telling them, as she might have told me in this particular instance I'm about to share with you, you're too politically correct. You're too concerned with your reputation. You're too sensitive to what people might say. She never said that to me. She just said to me, you've got to come with me because I want to set up safe houses in the community of Baltimore. What are safe houses? I didn't have a clue at that point in time. It was fascinating. I went to graduate school, postgraduate school, marital counseling school, etc. And at that point in time, I didn't know that there was such a thing as spousal abuse. As men, women in the community who are upstanding people, who as far as the world thought were upper class, well-behaved, cream of the crop, but were guilty of physically and emotionally abusing their spouses. But Rebbetzin Weinberg was aware of it. And she told me, I want to teach you something that you didn't learn in the Washington School of Psychiatry. And I'm going to teach you about it. Come with me to a safe house. A safe house were a number of houses, apartments really, where a woman, one case that I remember, a man, could come to be safe from the physical threat of her spouse. There was one house in Catonsville. I can now tell you the secret of where these houses were because they were outside the Frugal community. There was one in a little suburb of Annapolis called Severn, S-E-V-E-R-N. I said, what do you want me to do in these safe houses? You know, give a hashgacha on the kitchen, you know, make sure the mezuzah was put in the right place. So she told me what she needed me for. She needed me to bring to the attention of the Baltimore Jewish community, of the Baltimore Orthodox Jewish community, and eventually to the attention of the broader Jewish community in the world that domestic violence is a problem. It's a problem in our midst. It has to be faced. It has to be spoken about, etc. I want you to know the courage that it took for her to come to this point. People who opposed her literally called her crazy. They used that word. You're crazy, Rebbetzin Weinberg. There's no such thing in the Jewish community. Frum people don't act that way. Jewish people don't act that way. We don't have this problem. And when she began to show them case by case, one problem after other, the people said, well, that's an exception. Oh, those people are different. Oh, those people are from this segment. They're from that segment of the community. They're not from our segment. Until she convinced everyone that this indeed is a problem. The Associated recognized this and established many years ago now as one of the founding committees of Chana, C-H-A-N-A, which is not named for Chana Weinberg, but which is an acronym, but which she was directly involved in, to bring this to the attention of other people. So she gave me tochacha, not by scolding me or rebuking me or reprimanding me, but by motivating me and educating me and mobilizing me and others that I was able to involve toward this cause, to act. The ability to take compassion, in this case for a suffering, abused woman, and turn that compassion into a plan of action with a legal component and an economic component and a religious component and a psychological component, etc., etc. This was her secret. This was what we come to pay tribute to today. The ability to take compassion and translate it into action. But she went further, because in doing that, she was able to find fame. That's the secret of that Gemara. That's the secret. She gave toichacha. She told people what they didn't want to hear. And at first, that made her very unpopular. But eventually, they heard her message, and they looked toward her. And she, like Esther, was motzah chen. She found chen be'enei kol roeha, in the eyes of all who saw her. I just wanted to share with you a phrase, because there are many of you who would appreciate this phrase. The Ramban also struggles with this issue of chen. What does it mean that Noach found chen? And he says, Noach's chen was because shahayu kol ma'asov lefanov no'im une'imim. Everything Noach did was no'im, beautiful, une'imim, and pleasant. And that phrase, simple phrase of the Ramban, it's so appropriate to the derech hachayim, to the lifestyle and the life accomplishments of Chana Weinberg. Shekol ma'aseh hayu no'im une'imim, beautiful and pleasant. I want to conclude by coming back to this project of Bikur Cholim. There was a time when Bikur Cholim simply meant, what it means perhaps literally, to visit the sick. To come to a sick person, sit by his or her bedside, say a few words, listen to a few words, a sigh of sympathy, and then leave. Halachically, that's not all that there is to Bikur Cholim. But that's the practice of many, many people. It's to the credit of Rebbetzin Weinberg and to the growing, expanding, enhanced credit of everyone involved in the Bikur Cholim you just saw, that these are not just people who come to sympathize and to sit by one's bedside. This is an organization that cares for every aspect of the sick person, from what that person's Shabbos experience is going to be like, to finding proper medical personnel for the specific problem from which they suffer, from ordinary psychological to support, to all sorts of sophisticated types of support, and the whole gamut, and of course, more to come. This is not a problem that's going to go away. Unfortunately, illness is part of the human condition, and complications are part of human life. But this Bikur Cholim organization is dedicated to growing and expanding and serving more and more aspects of what it means to be ill, physically ill and mentally ill. Refuas HaNefesh and Refuas HaGuf. Bikur Cholim today is indeed following in the footsteps of the woman to whom we've come to pay tribute. A woman who is able to confront real problems with genuine compassion, with inner humility, but with effective action. These are the components of what she taught us. Compassion, but realistic action. Humility, but effective action. That was the heritage of Rebbetzin Chana Weinberg, Aleha Shalom, and that is the mission of Bikur Cholim of Baltimore. Thank you. Good night.
How fortunate we are to live in a city with people of such great stature in so many walks of life. The Rebbetzin personified greatness, humility, and kindness. As we turn our attention to the video for a tribute, I am reminded of the Rosh Yeshiva of Weinberg Zatzal, and I, as well as many of you, could share so many stories about his greatness and peaceful ways. Shalom and kindness were the hallmarks of both the Rosh Yeshiva and the Rebbetzin. I remember the Rosh Yeshiva once telling me that a man's tafkid in life, his purpose, is to become a Talmid Chacham, a great Torah scholar. And as only he could say, and what is the personification of a Talmid Chacham? He said that the Mishnah makes it simple. Talmidei Chachamim marbim shalom ba'olam. Torah scholars increase peace in the world. That's how they make their mark. It was such an important message then, and it still is today. In introducing the video, a woman called me this week to tell me her story with the Rebbetzin, and I thought that sharing the story would be a nice segue into our tribute video. The story is a simple one. It goes back about 12 years to a time shortly before her daughter's bas mitzvah. The family had invited the Rebbetzin to the bas mitzvah party, but the Rebbetzin had a family simcha out of town that day. She immediately invited the mother and bas mitzvah girl to her house for a get-together sometime before the bas mitzvah. At the appointed time, they arrived at the Rebbitzins' home only to find that I would say typically, a group of women had come to the Rebbitzin with an urgent matter that needed her direction. However, upon seeing mother and daughter, the Rebbitzin proceeded to excuse herself from the meeting and spend some quality time with the 12-year-old in a separate room. Upon leaving, she gave her a beautiful bracha and a very beautiful piece of jewelry. She then excused herself, went back to dealing with the crisis at hand. This was Rebbitzin Weinberg. She was clear, she knew what needed to be done, and she did it with love, with care, with comfort, and with shalom. We culminate tonight's celebration of the vision, the presentation to the family. While Yaakov Feinstein threw himself into tonight's celebration, his partner, Mr. Aaron Katz, continued to run the day-to-day operations at Bikur Cholim. Aaron has been the rock-solid, detail-oriented director of Bikur Cholim, and we thank you, Aaron, for your dedication and hard work. At this time, I'd like to call upon Aaron Katz, president of Bikur Cholim of Baltimore, to offer a presentation to the Rebbitzins family.
I have good news and bad news. The good news is tonight's program is almost finished and we're going to be able to go home. And I have bad news that tonight's program is almost finished. It was a beautiful program and it has to end at some point. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the team of volunteers who organized this beautiful event. Your untold hours of work are evident in the beautiful, wonderful evening. The Medrash in this week's parasha comments, Mi heir mi mizrach shemesh. Righteousness was asleep until Avram awakened it. He made an inn with doors open to all directions, greeting passerby as they entered. As the pasuk says, Vayita Eshel beBeer Sheva. Avram built an inn in Beer Sheva. Avram was a trailblazer who awakened his environment to tzedakah. As we heard in the beautiful video, the Rebbitzin Alei Shalom awakened the initiative of Bikur Cholim here and around the country. The Rebbitzin was a trailblazer who had the foresight to create something out of nothing, to form a Bikur Cholim with a range of services to help those going through medical ordeals. Together with a group of dedicated women and men, she carried the burden of Bikur Cholim for 25 years. On a personal note, I recall my mother, may she be well, as the chairman of the food committee, spending much time on the phone while I was trying to do my homework, in the kitchen, arranging Bikur Cholim meals. The Rebbitzin also had the foresight to enlist the next generation to take responsibility of carrying on the programs of Bikur Cholim. My colleagues and I have been fortunate to assume the role of building on the foundation the Rebbitzin so lovingly laid. Baruch Hashem, we have organized a citywide board of directors of both new and seasoned members of the community and are actively working to fulfill her dream. In fact, tonight I have an exciting announcement. The Rebbitzin had a dream for pots of chicken soup to be available in area hospitals. This vision is being recognized with kosher pantries full of food in several area hospitals. That wasn't the announcement. I have the pleasure to announce tonight that Johns Hopkins Hospital has designated a room to be dedicated as a Bikur Cholim room, which Be'eretz Hashem will be a reality. Look for details to follow. We have been fortunate to have the Rebbitzin as our role model. The Rebbitzin, as Rabbi Weinreb said, brought others along. She had a knack for getting the community actively involved in her work. The hundreds of Bikur Cholim volunteers, past and present, are a testament to her success. It's wonderful that tonight, as a community, we have the opportunity to join to recognize and show appreciation for her lifelong work. Next to me is a simulation of a plaque which will be hung in the Sinai Hospital, the Bikur Cholim room in Sinai Hospital. It lists the names of people who contributed $1,000 or more in the memory of the Rebbetzin. And this will eventually be hung in the room. There's still the opportunity to add your name to this list. To be included, please contact one of the evening chairs. The plaque reads, in loving memory of Rebbetzin Chana Weinberg, Aleh Shalom, founder of Bikur Cholim of Baltimore. She nurtured Bikur Cholim of Baltimore for more than 3 decades. The Rebbetzins' vision and devotion continue to guide our sacred work as we build on her legacy. At this time, I call on Yehuda Weisbord on behalf of the Weinberg family to receive this plaque in honor of his dear grandmother.
On behalf of Bubby's children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, I would like to thank all the organizers of this wonderful evening for this beautiful presentation. It is a nechama to us to see that Bubby's achievements are appreciated and to see that others have stepped forward to carry on her important work. I'm sure that Bubby would have been extremely gratified by this entire evening, both for the recognition of the impact that she made and for the sheer size and diversity of the community support shown here tonight on behalf of Bikur Cholim. This Shabbos we read Parshas Vayera, and it was always this week on Motzei Shabbos that she would make the annual Bikur Cholim Lav Malka. So I keep thinking that it's a Saturday night, but it's not, it's a Sunday night. But it's entirely appropriate that this be the week in which this honor is conferred. As we celebrate Bubby's accomplishments tonight, I would just like to take this opportunity to express our gratitude to one person, our mother, who has been a constant presence at Bubby's side. I thank her on behalf of all of us for the selfless devotion that she showed Bubby, especially as her needs gradually increased, for the constant yet unassuming support that she gives our entire family, and for the ongoing counsel and guidance she gives to so many individuals and organizations in our city, to which so many here tonight can testify. Mom, we love you. Thank you.
It's easy to say good night tonight in a certain way because you look for words at the end, and they always say drive home safely, drive home carefully, be safe. I think they mean it tonight. So thank you all for coming.